Alright, welcome to Chapter 8, Shooting Video Number 1. Shooting video is vital when it comes to putting together a TV news package, news VOSOT, or just SOT, because otherwise, well, you don't need the pictures. So we're going to talk about some of the important things that go into shooting video, and then some assignments, obviously, will be dealing with this. Think about your point of view. When you look at a picture in a book or an ad in a magazine, are you aware what draws your attention first? Where do your eyes go? What section of the picture do you look at? What do you look at next after the first thing? Where do you go? We're going to talk about how some of that comes together. And then can knowing what draws your attention first change how you frame your own photos or videos? And hopefully the answer there would be yes. Well, obviously, video is important when it comes to TV news, and video, though, can act in a couple of different ways. One, it can just be as a wallpaper, meaning it just gives us some video to look at other than just the anchor. Or it can work with and really define the story based on what you're going to get and how you're going to approach it. Creativity is always an interesting thing when it comes to TV news. TV news is not necessarily art, so it's not all about creativity. There also needs to be the story that you have to tell, and you have to make sure all that fits together and that those appropriate pictures tie together to tell the story, which is what it's all about. Well, let's talk about some terms, and we'll start with photojournalism. In the past, we used to have a journalist, person who'd be in front of the camera, and then we had the videographer, the person behind the camera. Well, in today's world, we're melding those two together, and we're really coming up with what we call video journalists or backpack journalists. But first, a photojournalist, it's an individual who does both photography and reporting in television news. That's where we're going. A video journalist or backpack journalist is an individual who operates independently, filling the role of photographer and reporter. And then the news photographer should have skills and expertise beyond operating cameras and editing systems. Today, for our students, you need to not go, I just want to be a photographer or I just want to be a journalist. You need to make sure you know both of those. All right. What are some of the photojournalist's responsibilities? One, you have to shoot and edit video. So you have to know how to handle the camera. You need to know how to handle the editing software. You got to go out, you've got to gather information just to get you ready to shoot and talk to people. You need to get the pictures that advance the story, and you need to know how to ask the right questions and ask them in the right way. And then you need to take ownership of the assignment. Other things, off onto the right side, photojournalist's responsibilities include considering the specific purpose of the story. That purpose is going to help to determine what I shoot. You need to understand the story's importance, and then when you arrive somewhere where the story is, you need to survey the area and examine the possible context for the story. What do you see around you that's going to be important to bring into the story? Let's talk about establishing context for a story, where it builds. We need to know what's going on. Who's where, who's doing what is happening. What do you see? Look closely. Don't look at just the big picture. Start breaking it down by areas. What do you see? What are those things that you think are going to be important for the viewer to see? What do you hear? It's not just the video. Audio is also vitally important. So what do you hear that is also going to help to tell the story? And, of course, what are the best shots? That's really where a lot of people start, is what are the best shots. And the best shots are going to be done in a variety of ways, using a variety of styles, and we're going to get into those. And what caused, as you think about the context of the story, what caused the event, and how can those causes be illustrated? Was it a wreck? Can we show how that wreck came together? Somebody got rescued out of the river. Can we show how that came together? But what parts of the story are you going to be able to tell using video? Well, what about some of the language of video? We have several different types of shots, and these sometimes get called different things at different places, but this is what we're going to be using. The wide shot, we see a whole lot of what's in the area. Medium shot, we get in a little closer, and a tight shot is just that. It can be closer, very close in. Then we also have what's called an establishing shot. Tight shots tend to show more emotion. Wide shots sometimes themselves are establishing shots. If we're at a house, we want to see the full shot of the house to tell us where we're at. It may or may not be the very first shot, but it'll establish where we're at. If we move from location to location, those establishing shots are also going to come in. We have zoom. The camera stays in one place. You use the camera mechanism to make it appear that we're closer than we are, or then you can zoom out and get a wider shot. You usually want to get as close to a subject as you can to get the shot that you want. When you can't, that's when you use zoom. We also have dolly, which is actually moving the camera itself, or we also have pan. Just so you know, and we'll talk about this more, a steady camera on a tripod is really the best kind of shot that you can get. It's not always available or realistic, but it's the best. Dolly means the whole camera itself is going to move left, right, right, left. Pan means the camera stays in one place, looks to the, let's say this time looks to the left, and goes across to the right. So when a car comes by, if we're panning, the camera stays where it is, the car starts a little smaller, we move with it as it comes across, it gets bigger in the shot, and then it moves off to the right. If we're dollying, we're right next to the car, and as the car moves, the whole camera moves along the side. Dolly isn't done a whole bunch in TV news, at least out in the field. Cutaways and B-roll, these are kind of interesting things. Cutaways are shots outside of the main action or main interview that are going to help us tell the story. If we're doing an interview with a professor at USI who is in the art department, maybe some of those cutaways are going to be shots of the art that they've done. B-roll really is all the shots that are available that then we can use. Cutaway and B-roll you'll hear sometimes used interchangeably. Interview cutaways, we just talked about those. Two shots. A two shot is going to show two people in there, and maybe as a reporter, you as the photojournalist, but as a reporter, you'd like to see yourself in there some to establish who you are. So maybe we're going to get a two shot of you, the reporter, interviewing the individual. That's a little tougher these days when you're doing everything yourself. There's the one shot, one person, or the close-up. And with this is going to be the stand-up. The stand-up is where you, the reporter, is going to be standing in front of the camera. You're usually going to have a mic in your hand, and you're going to do a portion of the story in front of the camera. Most packages have stand-ups. Sometimes there are live stand-ups before we go to the package and then after. And that'll be some of the depth we look at later. Well, what are some of the skills we want when it comes to framing shots? First off, hold the camera still. You really want to work this as much as possible. Use a tripod, and I'll tell you what, sometimes tripods are a pain to carry around. Use a tripod. Use a wide shot when no tripod is available. It helps avoid shakiness. The tighter your shot is without a tripod, the more we're going to see the camera move. It's going to be exaggerated. And fill the screen. Think about what you're shooting. Look at the whole screen. Put what's important in there. Stuff that's not important, get it out of the screen. Don't put distractions in there. This is kind of a fun one. We're going to look at this more in depth. Think in thirds. Divide your view, or as you're looking through the eyepiece, into thirds. And that's thirds horizontally and vertically. We're going to use the Z principle and something called the 10-second rule. The bottom line for the 10-second rule is when you start shooting video, don't shoot anything less than 10 seconds because you're going to usually not use the very front of it. You're not going to use the very end of it. 10 seconds when you're actually shooting it seems like too long, but when you get back to edit it, it's not going to be too long. The rule of thirds. That's what we're going to look at right now. Again, think of the screen as a grid guiding the composition of a shot. And picture the screen divided into 9 equal blocks. Again, 3 sections horizontally, 3 sections vertically. So it's a tic-tac-toe grid. And then aim for having the primary focus slightly to the right or left of center. You usually don't want everything just dead center because it becomes very boring over time. So you do want a little creativity. All right, for the rule of thirds, this is what it's going to look like. Took a little while for that to roll in. This black area, imagine that's your field of view. You're looking through the eyepiece of the camera, and you're going to imagine dividing this into thirds. And where those circles are, that's a lot of times where you're going to put some of the main focus, is either up on, off on the right side, off on the left side. So let's look at it how it is here. Then we're also thinking about several things focusing the shot. And to focus the shot, remember, zoom all the way in, focus the shot, pull out, and then start shooting. But look here, they've divided it into thirds. What's the main point? The school bus. The front of the school bus is not right in that middle section. It's off to the right. It feeds some depth down the school bus. There's also something called the Z principle, and we really don't talk about this a whole lot. This is where do your eyes go. In general, the viewer's eyes move naturally in a Z pattern. And just, look at the letter Z and start in the upper left, follow it to the bottom right, and that's going to be how you look in general. And with that, we move then top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. And the Z principle can help photographers in composing their effective shots. And when you do it right, you can especially use lines that are there in a story, meaning the lines of what you're looking at, to help guide your audience to where you want to go to. But also, it's even more basic than that. We're back to the rule of thirds. Starts to the left, goes to the right, angles down to the bottom left, goes to the right. Here's something that's basic in how this comes together. Here's how our eyes would work. So they'd go across the person's eyes, then down to their shoulder, then across to their other shoulder. Now, when you look at stuff, you're not going to go, oh, wow, I'm doing the Z pattern, unless you really concentrate on that. It tends to be a normal thing for people. All right, we're going out into the field and we're going to start shooting some video. What are some things that we want to look at when we're shooting video in the field? One, get plenty of shots. Come back with more than you need. Now with that, if you're doing a very short story, don't go out and shoot 25 minutes of video, but get plenty of shots. Then get a variety of shots. Get some wide shots, medium shots, tight shots. It's going to make it much easier to edit together. Look for interesting angles. Now don't get carried away, but angles looking down, angles looking up, to the right, to the left, what's going to be there. And then think about pans and zooms. In general, even though we want to do those, for the most part, avoid them, because if they're not done very smoothly, they're not good. So stay cautious about using pans and zooms. All right, here's some examples of what wide, medium, and tight shots would look like. The first one, A, is a wide shot. We see everything around there, but we don't see a lot of detail. A medium wide gets in a little closer. A medium shot you're going to see for an individual is going to be about waist or mid-thigh up. We can see it, we start getting some detail. Look at the person in the upper left where the wide shot is. That sailor who's closest to us, you really can't even see the ribbon on him. Now we get to the medium and you start seeing that detail. Then we get to tight. We're going to get to what's often called a head and shoulders shot. And then tight, we're getting in there about neck and cut off the top of the head. The tight shot, more emotional in most instances. The medium shot, what a lot of beginners fall back on all the time. You don't want just that. What about some unusual angles? Mention that. What it does is it gives the viewers a perspective they don't normally have. But you want to be careful. You don't want the video to be its own story and how it's shot. You want the video to tell the story. So it can add interest, it can add some depth, and it can add some texture if it continues to tell the story. It should not confuse the viewers. It may require a reference point to help viewers maintain their perspective. and it can have social meaning and reinforce a message. We'll have some demonstration videos for you to look at to kind of get a feel for that. Okay, what about shooting interviews? You're going to shoot a ton of interviews. What are some things to think about when you're shooting interviews? Number one, leave headroom or scan room. With that, you want some room above the person's head, and then you also want some of the look room or scan room where you can see around a little bit in front of them. Leave lead room with talk space or look space. I'm not going to put the interview directly in the middle quite often. I'm going to put them off slightly to the right, slightly to the left. If I have them off to the right, we want them looking a little bit off to the left. Otherwise, it seems really unusual. We don't have the look space. We want to avoid profile shots. There's just nothing really there. It's just the way it is. You want to include action in the video whenever you can, when it fits. Of course, B-roll can help with that. And if you need to, you're going to protect the identity of shooting the interview when it is required. All right, let's look at some of these individually. Let's start with headroom. And here, you can see the person isn't dead center. Their face, which is the main focus, is up between the top third and the middle third, and above their head, up to the top of the shot, there's some room there, so we're not cutting that off. That's headroom. Then, lead room. Leading is giving our person an opportunity to have a place to look. On the left, the person's looking left and they're further to the left. Boy, something's just awkward about that. Our eyes don't like that. Our minds don't like it. On the right, you can see the thirds. We put them off in the right third. They're looking to the left. And all that room to the left as we're looking at him, that's lead room. We feel much more comfortable with that. We talked about profile shots. They're just really not very good. Doesn't say never use them, but you usually want to avoid them. And lighting can also be difficult. All right, let's talk about stand-ups. And a stand-up is when a reporter is seen on camera talking directly into the camera. And sometimes it's live, sometimes it's recorded within a package. Let's look at that. So, again, when a reporter appears on camera during an edited news package, some of the things that are in there, and the out cue. The out cue is the identification of the reporter and the news station at the end of the story. Every station, every network, they have very definite out cues. You want to make sure you're doing it the right way. And we'll talk about those. There's a standard out cue, and this is specific wording for identifying the reporter and the station. And then what this does is it helps build station's image among viewers. So why would we do stand-ups? And there's a variety of reasons why. Number one is to show that you as a reporter, you're there. It adds some credibility. You might be able to reveal something. Then also to show participation in the story. Not only am I there, but I'm a part of covering the story. And to provide a transition from one part of the story to another. And then finally to provide a visual when no appropriate video is available. So each of those, and sometimes you could use a stand-up for every one of those things, that's the reason we do stand-ups. And you as a reporter, you're usually going to want to do stand-ups. All right, well, what about the video journalist and the stand-up? There's some important things to think of with today's technology. Obviously, it's not possible to look through a viewfinder and stand in front of the camera at the same time. So then what you have to do is you got to be a little bit more creative, but you can still use effective shots for stand-ups. One, they're basic, it's simple and well composed, and you may need to sacrifice creative angles and action, and quite often that's what you're going to have to do. So when you're going to set up a stand-up, how do you do this? First off, in today's world with the cameras, you have the LCD screen that you flip out and then you turn so it's facing towards the lens of the camera. Then you as the reporter goes in front of the camera. You can see exactly how it's set up. It's pretty simple, much easier than it used to be when we used tape and didn't have that. It took quite a process to bring all that together. Now, another area you have to watch for is lighting. And I'll tell you what, a lot of reporters don't really worry about lighting, but it is important because it's the difference often between good and excellent video. And I've seen it personally many times. It can soften harsh lines and shadows if that's what you're trying to do. Sometimes you want to accentuate those. It can provide depth and interest. Just so you know, light things that are lighter tend to draw our eyes, and it can enhance color, and it will draw attention to the desired part of the picture. Lighting can do all of those things. But there's negative things that lighting can do as well. It can flatten the picture. Just put somebody under fluorescent lights. It's not going to look as good. And I'm talking the old fluorescent lights. It increases undesirable shadows. It can ruin colors and can destroy the focus of the shot. What are some of the different kinds of lighting out there? Some things we want to look at. Set the white balance. On your camera, if you use white balance, focus the camera on something white so it adjusts to the color balance, to the balance of the available light. I've seen photographers, videographers, photojournalists use their white socks. The best thing to do is have a white piece of paper with you. Evaluate the shooting environment. Make sure the lighting is sufficient in the right ways, and understand the difference between what the eye is going to see, what the viewfinder shows, and what the final video looks like. By the way, you could have the best shot set up in the world, and if your white balance is off, your shot is now not very good at all, and possibly not even usable. All right, some lighting scenarios. What are some things we're going to look at? Flat lighting, and we're going to talk about each one of these. Three-point lighting, shooting outdoors, using reflectors, backlighting, and shooting at night. Reflectors, we don't use those as much today because there's only one person going out. All right, first, flat lighting. This is light that is lined up with the camera lens. It hits the subject directly and removes naturally existing shadows. So if there's a light directly behind me, I'm going to be with a cameraman in this case, and right in front of me is the reporter. That light is straight in. It flattens them. There's no angles, there's no depth, and that's going to come out, that's going to be flat. How do you correct this stuff? One, have the subject stand away from the background if it's flat. Point the light at the ceiling to reflect down on the subject, and then take the light off the camera and hold it at arm's length to hit the subject at an angle. So not always doable, but it'll help you get a better shot. All right, three-point lighting. Now, you're going to use this in a studio. You're going to use this when you set up a very important interview, but usually if you're a backpack journalist, you're not going to be able to do all of these things, at least not often. But three-point lighting has three lights: a key light, a backlight, and a fill light. The key light, that's the primary light on the subject. Then there's the backlight, which means the light behind the person you're interviewing. So the light is aimed towards the shoulder of the subject from the back. That's going to help add some depth to this. And then a fill light. This is a side light off. That's going to help so that the shadows aren't too harsh off of the key light.